So, again, I feel like it's really different to be in here again after so many months. And we're grateful that folks are supportive and taking care of one another and keeping our masks on and making sure that we kind of all stay safe in this environment. It's really so important, and that's what we do to take care of one another. I want to think about this Torah portion a little bit, and there was a story that a pastor friend of mine shared with me years ago, and every once in a while I just love to bring it forward. It's a story of a little boy who was saying his prayers at night just as his own pastor taught him. And this kid was named Jimmy, naturally. So it's a little Jimmy who was 5 years old and was very proud of the fact that he could say his prayers at night all by himself and didn't need any coaching from anyone. And this didn't stop his parents from checking up on him, but they wanted to make sure he didn't forget anything, the way that they would do things. So they were listening at the bedroom door, and they heard him add one or two thoughts of his own. He finished his God bless mom, God bless dad, God bless grandma, and then normally this kid, Jimmy, would have just hopped into bed. But this particular night, he stayed and prayed a little bit longer, and he finally looked up and he said with a real sense of, earnestness, he says, "Please take care of yourself, God, because if anything happens to you, we're all sunk." I've been thinking about that all week. Maybe because with our high school students, we've been talking a lot about God stuff, but I think really it's about anticipating this particular Torah portion. It's one where there is this presence of God moment that lots of Jews in America, we don't necessarily think about in terms of our own lives. And I think of this little Jimmy and how kids, especially when they're young, they have no problem with belief. They have no problem with a sense of faith. They are open to possibilities. But something happens to us as we get older. I don't know if it's society or it's maturity. I have a feeling it's the former, less than the latter. But there's these questions that come out. And sometimes that sense of being able to feel God's presence is not really so prominent for a lot of us. There's nothing blocking them. And I think as we get older, somehow we find these blocks. And I kind of envy that. I envy the child that doesn't have these blocks anymore. And we might be more mature and have a better understanding of the world. We find ourselves blinded by all of the things we have to do and all of the places that we have to be. Well, in this parsha, in this week's Torah portion, it's Vayetze, and it's rich with meaning, and it has these different levels of interpretation. It describes our patriarch Jacob and his flight from home when it's discovered that he tricked Esau out of receiving a very special and prominent blessing from their father Isaac. But Esau is so angry, he's ready to kill Jacob, and so Jacob runs. And here in the text, we see that Jacob stops in this empty place called Luz. There's nothing there, but the place is going to be transformed and be called Beit El, the house of God. And he takes a stone for a pillow, and he closes his eyes, and he falls asleep, and he dreams. He dreams. And in his dream, Jacob envisions a ladder. Well, we call it a ladder. It's probably more like a ramp. But let's just use ladder. I know some of you prefer stairway to heaven. And Jacob envisions this ladder, stairway, ramp that does really reach the heavens above. The peak of it is up above, and there are angels ascending and descending. They're going up and down. God addresses this young Jacob as the God of his grandfather Abraham and his father Isaac, and promises him to Jacob that he's going to return to be a part of the land of Israel. That not only will he return, but he's going to have many descendants, as numerous as the dust of the earth, and that God is going to have his back. God is going to be there for him. Now, in this thing that we call gematria, it's sort of like a game. Every Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalent. Aleph is 1, Bet is 2, Gimel is 3. Vet is not a different letter, by the way, no matter what your Hebrew school teachers told you. Bet and Vet is the same thing. So 1, 2, 3, Aleph, Bet, Gimel, fine. So in gematria, where this all has a numerical equivalent, the word for ladder, sulam, equals 130. So does the word kol. Kol, the word for voice. This is a place that he was able to have no more blocks and was able to hear God's voice. Not only is it the same letters or the numerical equivalent for voice, but it's also the same numerical equivalent of Sinai, the place where everybody gets to hear God's voice in that symbolic, metaphorical, or literal for some way, where you get to have a moment of revelation with Moses and all of the people because we were all standing at Sinai together. So with this sulam, with this ramp, ladder, stairway, he wakes up from his dream and he's astonished. He's moved. He's ready to be open to the possibility. And he grasps that the presence of God was in that very space, and kind of shaken, surprised, because I know I would be, he says, how awesome is this place? How amazing is this place? This is none other than the house of God, and that is the gateway to heaven. Jacob's ladder, that has all of this really cool art and stories all around it, Jacob's ladder is one which every person can climb. It's not just for the angels. Every one of us can climb to reach God's presence, have an encounter, hear words of protection, promise, comfort, consolation, even inspiration. And don't forget where Jacob came from. His spirits have been broken. He ran away from home. He fled for his life. His brother Esau, who was a skilled hunter, was going to threaten to kill him. So he was out of there, and he stops in this place that has nothing in it and nobody there, and recognizes that that makom, that place, is a special one where he gets to have this encounter. The place that was once empty is filled with potential. That could be anywhere. Doesn't have to be in this space. Now, I know a lot of people who live around Boulder feel like it can happen up in those mountains around the corner, but it doesn't have to happen there too. It really can be any place where we can find, encounter, build, construct our own ladders that bridge this world with eternity, with the infinite. When Jacob encounters this sulam, this ramp, he has this moment of extraordinary wonder. Can you think of when you've had that in your life? Maybe it was the mountains. Maybe it was a birth. Maybe it was falling in love. Maybe it was a sense of satisfaction that you had. Maybe it was just being in silence and sitting next to someone who's important to you, where we can have that encounter. And for Jacob, he kind of has a restored faith for a moment, even if it's just for a little bit. Because then all of his blocks come up. All of those things show up, and he starts negotiating with God. Hey, God, if you take care of me, if you have my back, you make sure I have food, and if I have good sandals, good sneakers, it's a long walk. If you make sure I have all of those things, then you can be my God. Well, that's very human. I get it. I feel that way too sometimes, don't you? But he said that God was in this place and I didn't know it. God was in this place and I didn't know it. I wasn't open to the possibility. And he was so moved. He was so moved. He was able to then make a marker. I think Jacob's ladder and the message and the story is that we can find a ladder that builds a connection between us and God. And if God is too full of a baggage-laden word for you, pick another one. I don't care. Gloria. Whatever it is, whomever you encounter, however you get to see that possibility, wherever that sulam can show up in your life, that's going to be a place where God lives with you. I hope that we can try and have a sense of that presence because, folks, life is too hard just to think that we have to put up our knuckles and do it all ourselves. And I think that that love and that presence and that strength can fill us up when we feel we don't have a whole lot left. And it can help us be a little grateful when things are going so good and we tend not to recognize any sense of gratitude. I'll share one last piece about this, is that, in the synagogue, when you look at our website, because I know everybody explores our website fully, if you look at the About Us part, you'll see our vision statement. Don't look now. But we have this vision statement that I think is really beautiful. And in our vision, it talks about the synagogue as a spiritual center. Not just a place where we gather, not just a place that does acts of justice or other kinds of things. This is also designed to be a spiritual center. And what we've written is that we appreciate joyful song, like our friends shared tonight with their gifts. We appreciate vibrant discussion. There's space for quiet reflection. It's where we take our ancient traditions and have them be revitalized and reaffirmed, and we seek a connection to the holy, however we imagine that. That's our spiritual center. You don't have to have the encounter in my way. In fact, you can't. Not even if you wanted to. It has to be your way. So, let's think. Ma nora hamakom hazeh in zeki im bet Elohim. How awesome is this place? It can be none other than the very dwelling place of God. And what happened to Jacob, I hope can happen to you. I take that back. I know it can happen to you. I hope that you can be open to the possibility that that sulam can appear in your life at any time, any place, that God can appear anywhere we let God in. Ken Yevetson. Let's move to Aleinu L'Shabeach, move to our conclusion. 508